Hey guys, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. I am recording this from my office today, as you can see from the different background. Um, just thought this would be a good change of scenery, and I think I'm going to do this more often from now on. I think it's a more professional atmosphere than my apartment, so hopefully you agree. And that's it. So today I want to talk about startups, a little bit less technical than I usually talk about. I want to talk about startups, which is my primary clientele, and where they go wrong when dealing with technical people, when most notably when trying to recruit technical talent, and this is a big problem in the industry. Uh, Technical recruiting is a hot button issue. Very few people seem to get it right, and startups are no exception to that. I think the problem fundamentally boils down to a misunderstanding of motivation, or what motivates a strong technical person, a strong programmer, a good programmer. What motivates this individual? It's no different than any other profession. Someone who's very, very good at what he or she does is motivated by a love of the craft. Right? They're truly, truly motivated by excellence in their field, in their craft, and they pursue it unrelentingly because they love doing it, not because they make a lot of money or whatever. That's the cream of the crop. These are the highest level people, right? If you're trying to recruit just anyone, well, anyone can do that. That's easy. You just put out an ad on Craigslist or whatever. You'll find somebody. You'll find people. What you want is good people. And I think this is very misunderstood by startups led by non-technical founders. The prevailing mantra seems to be you need to find a programmer who loves to program even if he's not being paid, right? So they love to program when they're out of work at home, program on weekends. That seems to be what most startups look for, people who just love to program. And that's a good thing. You do want to find those people. The problem is getting them to love to program for your startup. Now, that's the challenge. That's where things take a U-turn, right? Um, I love to program. I am one of these people. I love to program. I program an obscene amount, and when I have nothing to do, I program. When I program for money and I program for fun, so it's just nonstop programming, and that's it, and that's what I do. So I'm one of these people. So the question then is, why aren't I a CTO of a startup? Why didn't I join any of these startups that I've contracted with for almost 6 years now? All of whom wanted me to join, by the way. I can verify this with actual term sheet offers and contracts that I've turned down, full-time like employment contracts, and all of them wanted me to join, or almost all. There were not all. There were a couple that didn't want me to join full-time, but most of them did want me to join full-time. And why didn't I end up doing that? Well, number one, for me personally, the biggest problem was authority of the technical stack. This is a big one for me. For me, what I've experienced is whenever I bring up a technical solution to a problem, or maybe an alternative to the way something is done right now, a non-technical founder, my client, would overrule my technical decision based on some other reasoning, like this other guy likes it better this way, or we already built this, so we want to keep it, things like that. And that to me is very foolish when you're a non-technical person. That would be like me arguing with my doctor about my prognosis, right? That's just really, really stupid, and I would never do that. But in startup world, this happens like all the time. This is a very typical scenario. Let me give you a concrete example so you can understand it a little bit more concretely, I guess. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, one of my clients wanted to build a stack, his product, on a Django backend, Python Django with a React Redux front end, right? And the reasons were because he hired another developer overseas in South America somewhere who knew Python Django. And then he hired me to do the React Redux, right? So, my suggestion was, well, you might want to consider doing Node Express on the back end, because if at any point you want to leverage server-side rendering, that's going to be much easier in Node Express than it would be in Python Django. In fact, at the time, it wasn't even possible in Python Django. That may have since changed, I don't know, but at the time, a year ago, that wasn't even possible. So I said, uh, on the back end, you're probably better off with Node Express because it's JavaScript full stack. And then that way, when it's time to implement server-side rendering, it's already set up. You don't have to set up a whole nother Express backend just for that, which would really add to your costs. He didn't see it that way. He didn't even understand what I was trying to articulate. And so he went with his Python Django backend because of a cost decision. It was a cheaper cost. All right, so right then and there, I knew this startup is not for me. There's no way I'm going to join a CTO. Now, this person who founded the startup, he's still recruiting me to join. This is, it's been over a year, right? They haven't launched. They have no customers, no product market fit, nothing. They're still building. I left that company about 6 months ago. Whenever I started Turbo is when I said, all right, this contract I'm not going to continue with this. They're still in the building process. So this person was able to raise, I think, like 2 million or whatever, and so he's got a lot more runway. But that's a complete non-starter for me. I'm not going to join a company that's going to dispute me on technical matters. Now, if it's a business thing, that's fine, whatever. That's not really what I'm hired for anyway. But if I'm hired for technical expertise, then I'm going to deliver that. What I find perplexing is how common this scenario is. So if you're a startup, that operates like this, most of the times I find that the founders, they don't even realize they're doing it. So it's not really like an overt decision. It's more of a subconscious thing. Like, I think a lot of it's ego, to be honest. We're dealing with young men, average age 30, 31, 32. And who've raised $1 million or like 700,000, whatever, and it kind of gets to the head, and it creates a dynamic in which people want to assert their authority. Like, I'm the one in charge. I'm the CEO of this company, which has no users and no revenue, by the way. But I'm the one who's going to call these shots, right? There's a lot of that going on in this environment. It's just human nature. It goes on in every industry. But what happens is when you don't know where to step back, right? And understand when you're out of your element. When you're beyond your pay grade. Like you got a non-technical founder who would read a couple blog posts and then start to really dispute me on technical issues. Like that, you're just out of your pay grade, and you need to really understand that I'm at a level that they'll never comprehend. Just like a professional athlete is at a level I will never comprehend. Like I simply will not comprehend that level of ability and skill because I'm not a professional athlete or even a good recreational athlete. But the point is, there are levels that you have to understand kind of where you fit in the ecosystem and leverage your expertise, right? I know where I'm good and I know where I'm not, right? And a lot of founders don't really think that way. It's more like I'm the boss. I'm going to call all the shots no matter where we are, and that's really not a good mentality. I see it a lot, by the way. I see it a lot. I see a lot of money wasted that way. I see a lot of almost every startup I've worked with doesn't exist anymore, and I think a lot of it's preventable. That's a big thing to understand. A lot of it's preventable. A lot of it is hubris, misdirected hubris. Not really understanding where your expertise and strengths lie and how you can apply them effectively to growing your company rather than just asserting your authority. It's a big problem in a startup. And as soon as I recognize those dynamics, I know right away I'm not joining this company ever. I'm just going to take as much money as I can out of it. I'm just going to bill hours, bill hours, bill hours. Now, as I'm doing that, I'm going to do my job. I'm a professional. I'm going to do my job. But I have no emotional investment in this company. I don't care whether or not they fail or succeed. None of that concerns me. I'm just billing hours, billing hours, billing hours until I move on to the next thing, right? And um, that's a big element of this game. A lot of startup founders don't really understand the game they're walking into, right? I've been doing this for almost 6 years now. I've developed a level of skill in this understanding of how to play the rules, understanding the rules of this game much, much better than a newcomer. So I can exploit that lack of experience pretty easily if they have no background in startups, but they also have $500,000 to burn. Um, those are pretty plum targets. Those are easy targets, and those are all over New York City, probably more so in the Bay Area. And they're walking into a hornet's nest, and that's the game they're playing. Um, so that's number one, is when startups they don't heed the technical advice of their technical people. Very odd, yet very common. I really don't understand the mentality. Number two is just product market fit. Just how's your company going? You know, I'm willing to overlook a lot of, I'm willing to make a lot of compromises for a company that has high growth. Um, I'll take a back seat to a lot of companies that have high growth. I'll put my ego aside. I'll put my expertise aside. If somebody wants to use Python, Django, or PHP on the back end with React on the front end, but they're also grossing, 500,000, 500K a month net, or yeah, gross, net, whatever. Um, I'm, and they're offering me a CTO role. Okay, yeah, fine. I'll take a step back. I'll know my place in that situation. I'll know my role in that environment. Far too many startups, an overwhelming majority of startups, operate as if they're that company, as if they make $1 million a month revenues, as if they make $10 million, annual recurring, when they make nothing. Um, what I find very strange is that startups will try to paint a picture about how successful they are and how much they're growing, which is kind of what they're supposed to do. I get that. I get that part of the equation, especially when they're raising money. So that's probably where it comes from. But then if they hire you as a contractor, so that's me, and I'm working on their stack, I'm working on their back end, I can just see the registration numbers. Like I just see the database, and I just see like, no, you got 4 new signups today. Like you're not high, this is not a high growth company. Like the bullshit stops here. Like I'm literally looking at your registration numbers, right? Like the technical, it all stops with the technical numbers. Like it's right in front of me, right? And I had another startup. This is about 2 years ago that really laid on the bullshit. It was like we're getting like thousands of new users. What I found out once I was hired to work on their stack was they wrote automated scripts on AWS to basically create a bunch of new users, like in an automated way. They were fabricating users, right? And like I understand kind of where that impulse is coming from. I can sympathize with the impulse and the temptation to do that. However, um, I would never do anything like that, but I can certainly understand where the impulse comes from. But when you're trying to sell that bullshit to the technical guy you're hiring, it really shows a complete lack of understanding, right? Like I'm working on your database. Like I can see how it's organized, and I can see where the new users are coming from, literally. Right? I probably know the numbers better than the founder does, or at least in this case, evidently I do. And so that disconnection with reality is also a complete no-go. Just non-starter. Just I'm going to bill hours and bleed whatever I can, whatever runway I can. I'm going to bleed out of it, and then once they go under, I move on to the next one, right? This is also quite common. And if you're a startup founder, you really need to calculate who you can do this with and who you can't. If you're hiring, a back-end dev to replace your CTO who quit because he got a better job in Amazon or whatever, those tactics will only work for a momentary period of time. And then he's going to see the database, or she's going to see the database and find out that your numbers were completely full of shit. And then what? Right? And again, this is not a hypothetical situation. Like, I'm describing, basically everything I'm describing are scenarios that actually happened. I'm just trying to change enough details so that nobody can figure out who I'm talking about. But it's a very comical situation when someone's trying to, like, convince me. It's like if I was trying to say to you, like, look, I'm wearing a red sweater. Like, look, I'm wearing a red sweater. Look, it's red. It's red. I just keep on saying that. You would be like, stop. Like, it's blue. Just stop. Like, there's, it's not working. It's not working. Stop it. Get calibrated with reality. Situate yourself with reality, because, at least with the people who have to deal with it, the technical people, I have to deal with the reality, right? Having these conversations is exhausting. It's exasperating, and it just shows it's a surefire way to get rid of your best people, is what I'm trying to say. It's a surefire way. If you're a startup founder, this will do it. If you want to drive away your best people, this will do it. And this is something that I experienced about 2 years ago. So that contract lasted about 4 months, and I was like, all right, well, that's the end of that, and then I'm moving on to the next one. So yeah, that's oddly common. Another scenario that I see a lot is I don't know the best way to describe. I guess like lack of hustle would be a good way to describe it. This is extremely common as well. What happens is a startup founder. This is certainly more common when you have at least 2 founders. Then this will happen like almost every time. When you have 2 founders or more who get sort of swept away with the romance of being in a startup, and they spend all their time drawing mock-ups, drawing designs, UI this, UI that, creating all sorts of features, or like not creating but conceptualizing new features, just feature on top of feature on top of feature. And then they start sort of fantasizing about what they're going to do once they IPO and make $1 billion or whatever. When you have at least 2 founders, this will happen, and you need to be, as a technical person, you need to be very observant of when this happens, because those people lack hustle. You got to be aware of that. They're afraid to go out there and sell, and they find it more enjoyable to sit in a room just like the room I'm in right now and do mock-ups like that, right? I see these mock-ups in WeWork all the time, right? Stuff like that, and just sort of fantasize about how famous they're going to be and how much money they're going to make once they IPO and all that stuff. And this becomes the norm. Like this is like a typical meeting. Like this happens multiple times. While that's happening, what they're not doing is getting out there and selling, or at the very least, talking to potential users about their product, getting feedback, iterating, getting more feedback, iterate, get more feedback, iterate. That should be all that's going on, right? But there's too much sort of wishful thinking. And again, this is a very, very common scenario when there are multiple founders, 2, 3, 4 non-technical founders, in which case It's pretty much what I expect in that scenario. That's what's going to happen. So if you're a startup founder, you need to avoid this mentality. It's a trap. It's a trap. And you need to be aware when you're falling into that trap. Catch yourself and get back to work. And that work, if you're non-technical, should be getting as much feedback as you can, finding the funnels that drive users to your product, seeing where the funnel drops off, seeing where the user registration numbers drastically drop off, getting feedback from the people who do sign up, finding the best features and accentuating those, seeing which features you can cut. Keep on doing that. Keep doing it, and that should be essentially all you do, right? But a lot of founders are just not attuned to that because they can't handle negative feedback. They can't handle rejection. I did a whole video on rejection, which I strongly recommend you watch, because if you're a startup founder, be prepared to handle an ungodly amount of rejection. Now, one of the big differences is that people are so not used to rejection, especially in today's society, in today's day and age. They're just so not used to it that they're not able to punch through it. They're not able to keep on moving past that. And I see that, pretty much everywhere. What you want to do, one of the things I look for in a startup founder is how used to rejection he is or she is. Just how much do they deal with that? And one of the ways you can gauge that is whether or not they have a chip on their shoulder. Do they have a bit of an edge? Are they a little angry? Like, do they feel like, like the world just, they're going to learn how smart this guy is. The world is going to learn how hardworking this guy is, like how capable this guy is. You want people like that. Those people are motivated in a very different way. That chip on their shoulder, that you're making a mistake about me and you're going to find that out the hard way, right? That takes a bit of an accustomedness. What's the word? Just being used to rejection, right? And a lot of people, most people are not used to it. And again, I don't want to just redo that previous video, but that's the main message: is most people just can't handle rejection. They just can't deal with it. And so, but as a startup founder, you're going to be dealing with an insane amount of rejection. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, when I was trying to raise financing for Turbo, I had one investor literally laugh in my face. That's a pretty harsh rejection, right? He literally laughed in my face, right? And it's a pretty prominent investment firm. If you're a startup guy, you've heard of this investment firm. Okay, that's fine. Just file it away, right? Look, I'm used to this. I'm used to this. This is the world I live in, right? This is the reality of my life. Now, how much can you deal with that, right? How much can you deal with that? Can you deal with that and just keep moving forward with the same level of motivation, if not more, right? Will that reduce your motivation? Well, for most people, 99% of people, it's going to discourage them. And they're like, what am I doing? I suck at this. You get down on yourself. And you start thinking like, oh my God, I'm fucking stupid. I can't do this. I can't do this. And you start really beating yourself up inside, right? This I know because I experienced this. So my point is that it's not that you're impervious to rejection. Nobody is. That's crazy. That's an insane person. It's that you can withstand it. You can withstand it. And most people can't. Okay. It's not my problem. It's not my problem. What you want to find are the people who can, and they use that constructively. Right? They use it constructively. And that's not most founders I've worked. In fact, I can only think of one founder I've worked with who possessed that mentality. And this is a very, very strong-willed man. He definitely had that edge that I'm describing. He was an angry person. He was super motivated. And he just worked tirelessly, relentlessly. And ever since that, I would always look for that quality in other startup founders. That person, in recent months, about 4 or 5 months ago, his company exited. I don't know what the price was, but I'm sure he did quite well because he was a founder of the company. So good for him. Um, I don't think that was a coincidence. He wasn't lucky. He wasn't in the right place at the right time. This guy was the most motivated person possibly I've ever met. Possibly. At least one of the most motivated people. So I look for that in startup founders that I've worked with, and I've never seen it since him, and I probably don't think I'll ever see it again with my clientele, at least. Everyone kind of has a laissez-faire attitude of things, just, oh, we'll get to it when we get to it. Oh, I can't get to that this week. I'm going on vacation with my wife. All that crap has to go. It all has to go. If you're the founder, all that crap has to go. I'm not saying it's a healthy lifestyle. Understand, I'm not advocating this as a healthy lifestyle, but this is what it takes. This is what it is. And most people don't possess that sort of fortitude, I guess. So that lack of connection with reality is an important ingredient when I look for people who I can see myself working with long term. And I guess that's my perspective. But you got to understand, a lot technical people are bombarded by startups all the time, all the time. You know, just I could join a startup in a couple of days if I wanted to. It wouldn't be a good startup. I probably wouldn't make a lot of money, but I could be a CTO within 3 weeks if I wanted to. I think a lot of the perspective, a lot of founders also lack the perspective of just how much technical people are approached. Right? What it reminds me a lot is kind of like being an attractive young lady at the bar, or an attractive young woman, maybe not even at the bar, just period, just being an attractive young woman in a big city, just constantly being approached by guys, and just getting messaged all the time on Tinder or OkCupid or whatever people use today. I don't know, but like just constantly being bombarded by just not just guys, but like loser guys, like guys who have no chance, right? Like guys who are just not very attractive, who don't have a good career. Like, I kind of sympathize now with these women. Like, I can kind of understand the dynamic. Like, I get messages from startups on like AngelList all the time, and LinkedIn, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to join our company?" And it's like, what makes you even think I would consider joining your stupid company? Like, your company has no revenue, no users, no growth. You have only 100,000 funding. Like, why would I even join your company? Like, it's such a laughable proposition. Like, I have so many better options every day of the week that to join this one company, it's just a laughable proposition, right? I would imagine this is like what attractive women go through all the time. Like, you get approached by these guys who are just like, you just have zero chance. And after a couple of years of that, I can see them. I can understand why they have what's called the bitch shield, right? Like, just get away from me. I can actually kind of sympathize with that. Not that I'm a hot woman, I'm not, or a hot guy. I don't experience those problems, but I do understand those dynamics in another context, because I am bombarded on LinkedIn, on AngelList, on whatever else, not Craigslist, but what's the other one? F6S or whatever. I get messages a lot saying, "Hey, do you want to join our startup? Do you want to join our startup?" A couple times a week, and it's been going on for years. And then that doesn't even factor in the personal network. Good God, that's a whole other problem that I can do a whole video on, is when the personal network reaches out. Hey, my friend so-and-so said I should contact you because you guys used to work together. I got this startup idea. This happens many times a year. And I have to be more tactful about that and explain to this person as gently as I can. You're not really in this game. You don't really have a chance. You should quit now because you're not going to make it, right? Um, I try to do that for the right people, like the kind of guy who has an idea that he might want to build. He has a timeline of like 2 years. Like I want to get this out in 2 years. 2 years. 2 years. Like that's your timeline. Like this is a conversation I had over the summer. He wanted to get his app idea out in 2 years, right? This summer. So this is December 2017. So we're talking like 5, 6 months ago. And like anyone with that kind of timeline is a joke. Like you're a joke if that's when you want to build your MVP. So, but this was a contact from a friend, right? So I have to be a little bit nicer to him, but I still have to explain to him like, look, you really should ramp up your time. Well, okay, I don't want to get into the details, but my point is, there. You see how often this happens for good startup guy. One tack that I've taken lately, which I don't know if it's a good thing, it probably isn't to be honest, but I've started to be more harsh with these people. So even if they're from personal network, because really what I want is these referrals to stop. That's how bad it is. Like I actually want these referrals to stop. So can you imagine like that? That's how much we get bombarded by this. So what I do with these people now is I say, yeah, sure. If you want to meet to discuss your idea, my initial consultation is $500. Just PayPal me right here, and then you can meet me in my office, or we can do a phone consultation instead. And that gets most people out the door, boom, right away. Just that ends all that. It's oftentimes it's not cordial. I don't care. What I want is the referrals to stop because it's not. They're almost all dead ends. Um, you're dealing with an uneducated audience when it comes to tech, right? And that'll never lead to like a broader network. It just won't work. It's just a bunch of dead ends, right? So really, you know, like I said, I don't know if it's a good thing, but that's what I started doing. It certainly worked. I'll put it that way. I don't know if I might have lost some friends along the way, but I will say like certain channels of referrals stopped, and that's by design. So can you imagine if you're a startup founder, if you're a non-technical founder, how much um, just how much technical people get, or at least good technical people get inundated with like referrals and requests, people who want to meet with you to discuss their idea, people who have their own startup they want you to join, whatever. How often that happens, right? So much. It happens to me. It happened to me so much. I started executing measures to prevent it, and not good ones. Like I was flat out rude to some of these people, but it cut those referrals, and that's how much it happens. And I think a lot of non-technical founders they don't understand just how much it happens, right? And so the question then is, how do you distinguish yourself from that massive noise, right? That huge, massive noise that's just constantly like, hey, I got this great idea. I got this app idea is going to be awesome. I got this idea. I need a rock star developer. I need a ninja, whatever. Just that whole just massive noise. Right? How are you going to distinguish yourself, right? It it's something you need to figure out. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, right? Um, I mean, the easiest way is just money. That'll do it. Just money. Just say, hey, pay you $1,000 just to create a simple landing page, and then we can take it from there. I mean, even 1,000, not that much. I pay $5,000 to create a simple landing page with user registration and a database connection. Let's see where it goes from there, and then if it works, great. If not, we'll find another developer. Whatever, right? Money talks, right? That's one way you can solve that problem pretty fast. Speaking of that, another technique startups use, this is a pretty common technique, is name dropping. You got to cut that out now. Cut it out. No more name dropping, because I hear it everywhere. Oh, my startup, we got an investment from, Oprah Winfrey. We got an investment from James Altucher, right? Something along those lines, like just dropping names, right? Um, or the best is when they say they might get an investment from so and so. Like Elon Musk said he might look into this if we can get CTO. So we just need you, and then Elon Musk is going to put in $2 million. Uh, very common, very common, right? So um, you got to really understand. Uh, feel free to do that, but understand the signals you're sending out, right? So the signals you're sending out are the people, the really good people with experience. You're driving all them away because they already know you're a clown. So you just want to you're just deterring all the good people, and then the people who are left are the ones you're dealing with, right? So you're sending out all the wrong signals, right? So as a startup founder, you need to be aware that this is what's going on, and then whoever's left over is what you're dealing with. Now, if you're a non-technical person, you can't make those distinctions anyway. So to you, they're all technical people. They're all good, as far as you can tell. So this is, but what you're really left with are the leftovers who can't, who don't understand that, who aren't properly responding to those signals. I used to be that guy 6 years ago. All right, 6 years ago, I'd be like, oh, well, you got an investment from Oprah Winfrey. That's really cool. But 6 years ago, I was not a good programmer, right? That's what was left over. I was the leftover at that point. So, these are dynamics that uh, you need to as a founder, you need to understand. Um, you need to be aware of them. You need to be aware of them. And then ask yourself, okay, well, who am I looking for? What do I want? Do I want a person with a high level of experience and expertise and skill with a strong background? Then none of this is going to work. You really need to reevaluate your approach. Um, if you want somebody who's new and young and cheap, right? That's different. That's different. Um, understand that that person won't be nearly as good as a more experienced person. But if you can live with that, then you adjust your approach. You adjust your approach. Those techniques probably will work. Name dropping will work on younger, less experienced people. Saying that a 3-year vesting, 4-year vesting schedule for 2%, will work because they will buy into the fact that the idea, the notion that your startup may IPO in 5 years. That will work with younger, less experienced people, right? If that's what you're looking for, then those strategies work. They're proven. They're proven to work. Um, as long as you understand you're compromising the skill, the ability, to a large degree, not like a little bit, right? So it's another thing that there's also the matter of frame of reference. The analogy I always draw between very good developers and mediocre to weak developers. The fastest human being in this world is Usain Bolt. He runs 100 meters in probably 9.6 something seconds. 9.5 seconds, he'll run 100 meters. You take a guy like me, who's probably amongst the slowest people in the world, I can still do 100 meters in like 16 seconds, right? So that's true. That's not a fast time. That's really slow. So that's still within 70%, 80% of what Usain Bolt can do, right? Like if you just multiply his time by 1.8, you're going to get to what I can do, right? So it's like an 80% differential. So maybe a weak developer will take twice as long as a very, very strong developer. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. And most people who are non-programmers would think that's a reasonable estimation. And it seems reasonable. It's not reasonable. A weak developer will literally take 50 times as long as a good one. That's not an exaggeration. Okay, multiply it by 50. A weak developer will take 50 times as long as a good developer. That is not hyperbole. A mediocre developer, an average developer might do 5 times as long as an excellent developer, 8 times as long. Once again, not a hyperbole. These numbers are accurate, right? So then most founders or non-technical people, they're not just blown away by that. They're in disbelief of that. They just refuse to believe it. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. Uh, Not trusting the authority of the technical person, right? Um, okay, well then that's fine. Like if it's their money, they let them make their own mistakes. But it's another indicator of why I would never join certain startups when they just refuse to believe. They don't offer their own justification, right? Um, anyway, this has become a bit more of a rant than I intended. I was trying to keep this more cut and dry, but if you follow this all the way through, understand everything I said is accurate. It is true. So if you're a startup founder, you should really take this under strong advisement. Um, I've seen more than a few startups just completely fail because technical decisions were not heeded, and these are preventable reasons. These are reasons that can be prevented if properly studied and anticipated. And the thing is, it's 2017. It's almost 2018. It's not like the whole startup concept is new. If you go back to the late 90s, we're looking at 20 years, right? So by now, like the literature and like sort of the conventional wisdom is pretty strongly, it's pretty strongly like established. The common mistakes and patterns have been established. What to do versus what not to do have been established. Yet I still see the same mistakes over and over and over again. It shows a lack of wisdom. It shows a lack of seriousness. Like study the industry, study what can go wrong, figure out the common missteps that hundreds or thousands of people have made before you. Make sure you don't make those mistakes, right? This is not like a hard thing to do, but um, a lot of founders, at least the ones that I've worked with, they don't espouse that mentality, and they sort of insist on learning the hard way. Um, so if you're a founder watching this, understand that and try to be proactive about preventing that, about not being one of those people, and not being, not falling into traps that many people before you have fallen into. That's a silly thing to do, right? Okay, well that's it. I hope yeah, that a lot of that made sense. And if you have any questions or suggestions for future topics, please let me know, and I'll try to make more videos based on startups. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.